It's about delivering better public services. So it's about coming together in stronger partnerships and about sharing a vision about delivering outcomes for local residents. It's not necessarily about a funding stream, but it's about aligning resources and potentially pooling resources that are already available. We have less funding going forward, and it means that we will be able to maximise the outcomes from the funding that we actually have for the benefit of residents of the city. It's about delivering better outcomes for local residents. It's also about delivering the outcomes within our cultural strategy. But we think that engagement in culture and participation in culture is inherently a good thing, and that we can actually prove how working and delivering cultural programmes helps people and residents within the city to have better health and well-being, better economic and better social cohesion outcomes. So in some sense it's actually delivering cultural outcomes, but it's also delivering outcomes for the wider benefit of the city and the citizens. From a cultural perspective, the benefit will be hopefully a raising of cultural participation. Also that communities will be much more involved in the development of cultural programmes within the city. And although community-based budgeting sounds as though it's a policy programme, it's very much about delivering better outcomes for local people. So eventually we will have funding streams that will actually try and address some of the real issues that we have in the city, and that will be able to evidence how culture can move those issues on within the city as well. So it's about getting more people involved in culture, which we think is inherently a good thing, but we're very much on the early stages of that, and we hope that eventually we'll be at a point where this will be all about us understanding through a stronger partnership what we're trying to achieve collectively in the city.
The cultural element started when the Department for Culture, Media and Sport began working with Birmingham City Council and the other cultural agencies, such as the Arts Council, to identify how money spent in the city could be more effectively and efficiently used. At the moment, many millions of pounds are spent in the City Council on a variety of very good projects, but we felt that perhaps working together more proactively, we could really maximise the use of every pound. So the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, working with the City Council and with the Arts Council, English Heritage, the Museums, Libraries and Archives Council and the Heritage Lottery Fund, began working together some 3 months ago in December 2010 to analyse how money was being spent in the city, to draw together data on the impact it was having and to assess how it could be better spent in the coming years. We've gathered together the information about the spend by the various agencies in the City Council. We began to assess where the money is being spent, which communities, wards of the city, which people it's influencing, which people's lives it's improving. And we're beginning to assess how that could be spent in a different way in the future. First key challenge we've had is around the data and information concerning the spend in Birmingham. Often it's quite patchy, it doesn't give the level of detail about the impact on people's lives, and therefore working together across the City Council with DCMS and the cultural agencies to bring together all the detail, all the data across those agencies to see if we can identify gaps and therefore work on them. The second key challenge relates to the way that the national agencies and the City Council measure the value of their investment in the city. Quite clearly the City Council focuses very much on measuring the impact on local people, the way it improves their lives, whether it meets the City Council's key outcomes. Whereas the national agencies look at broader aspects such as excellence and participation. Therefore, at the moment we're reviewing both of those areas and seeing how we can marry them to ensure that we invest more effectively in the future. What we have learned is a number of things. Firstly, that when we look at cultural investment, we have to look beyond the cultural silo, making sure that the cultural investment benefits people across a range of different outcomes. I think we also have to look beyond the range of governance methods in cultural agencies that have been dominant in the past, where we encourage agencies to look at marrying local need with national priorities. And I think finally we have to realise that cultural investment is about benefiting people's lives, and we have to focus upon this.
The next steps are for us to continue to share ideas and information about how we use our resources locally, and for some of the organisations like the Arts Council and the MLA to consider the national context within which we're working as well. And we also need to consider whether the new ways of working will really meet the needs of local communities, and whether they will also have an add-on benefit for the arts and for cultural organisations that we're working with. Ultimately then we might be able to start to plan jointly towards clear outcomes that we can bear in mind, and bring in some of those broader partnerships, such as the police and housing agencies and neighbourhood management, and people who understand how to bring benefits to those local communities and help us to connect culture to them. I think you need to think very broadly about the sort of partners that you need to include and that you need to speak to, but be very clear about what sort of outcomes you're looking to achieve. You need to be very open to new ideas, new ways of doing things, but then you need to think very practically as well about the different ways in which organisations might gather information and data, because it takes an awful long time actually to start putting things together when they're done slightly differently. And another thing then is just allowing plenty of time to develop your ideas. I think we're at the early stages of exploring the possibilities at the moment, but there could be considerable benefits of a shared approach to local outcomes and to fully understanding how we allocate resources as separate agencies. And the sorts of outcomes that culture can contribute to are very wide-ranging, from making more active and healthy citizens to getting people more involved in their communities.